Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are here at the release of the next chapter, and it's certainly just taken a step back after the last chapter we had because it's pretty hard to follow a big chapter such as 1125. Like, that certainly left us in a spot with more questions, answers, and certainly big reveals that I certainly wasn't expecting at this point in the story. We still have some really cool things this chapter that don't directly impact what we've just found out. We're jumping around to a few other locations, which we assumed we would. It wasn't just going to be a straight jump to Elbaf. I think we're maybe a month, 2 months away from setting foot on the island. There is still much happening, and by the end of this chapter, certain things have happened that meant that it will likely be November time we'll hit Elbaf, because Oda's taken us in a very different direction that I didn't think was going to happen during this sort of filler time where we are intimately sailing from Egghead to Elbaf. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, without further ado, chapter 1126, Taking Responsibility. And we continue with Yamato's cover story, their pilgrimage that they are on, and they are eating soba noodles at a local shop where in Kuri there is continuing report of missing people. In this case, it is the missing girls that are being reported. So I assume this is going to be now a continuing mini arc within the Kuri region that Yamato is sorting out. So last we had left off was the monumental chapter that had the death of St. J. Garcia, the new appointment of Figaland Garland, the reveal that the other Vegapunk satellites were actually still alive in a way, like they're sentient because of the brain maybe, and that they had planned to take the lab phase away from Egghead using the clouds. York put a stop to it, so they only escaped with Punk records. So the whole plan was to get the whole lab, but York used her laser gun to sever the egg, so only the top managed to escape. But then we got the new creation of all the Vegapunks together, which was kind of mad. And then we had a decisive moment at the end from Dragon announcing he's kind of gonna act now. It's been a long time coming. We know the revolutionaries have done stuff. Dragon himself has kind of been more of the man in charge, the man in the chair making the choices. Probably gonna be now him directly making some impact in the story soon. All the big figures that we saw in that chapter spread when it was declaring whoever finds the One Piece is going to change the world, it's going to be about them. We saw Dragon obviously was a part of that, so he's declaring here, making his move. So where we pick up from is back aboard the Elbaf ship. Yes, the giants, the party, the feast is in full swing, and Oimo and Kashi are explaining to the Straw Hats that as after they had left at Water 7, after they'd interacted with everyone and they'd found out that Dory and Broggy were actually on Little Garden, as the lad they say, we went to go see our captains and get them ourselves from Little Garden. And Luffy's eating so much food, he's like, oh yeah, that's what happened and that's how you have met up and that's why you are here. Anyone will be curious where they were after 100 years, because that's how long they were fighting for. So Dory and Broggy are old at this point, and they joke and say the feud that they had was still not resolved. They didn't get anywhere. And they said that when Oibo and Kashi reached Little Garden, they were still fighting at this point with their bare hands. Their weapons had probably been destroyed. And, they were just still fighting around and punching each other. So they made a deal, a sort of agreement that in their duel to the death, that they had to go back to Elbaf to rearm themselves. So the feud's still ongoing. The duel to the death still stands as their sort of village trait or rule that they had in the village of theirs, of the duel to the death, is still imposed. And Nami's like, wait, you're going for new weapons, so you're still fighting? And Dory and Broggy are smile and laughing, but are like, of course, yeah, why wouldn't we be? And Nami's like, I'm so done with this, and just carries on drinking. But Usopp's riled up and is like, come on, did you not learn anything back in Little Garden? We knew that this is a fight to the death. That was the declaration, that is the rule. So that is what has to be sought through. They're just kind of taking a break, I guess, which, given the circumstances, they went back to Elbaf to rearm, and then leaving have bumped into the Straw Hats. So who knows when we might see them fight again. But as this is then all going on, Sanji has a little moment where he's like, this is really strong booze. What is it? And one of the giants said it is absinthe, a hugely alcoholic drink, but it is called the Green Fairy, and it has been known that there is a chance to cause hallucinations from this drink. It is that strong. Okay, we'll come back to that. As we see then the festivities continue, the panels depict a multitude of straw hats with giants laughing, eating, partying. They are in full enjoyment. And we get a beautiful moment up aboard the ship itself. On deck, we see a young Bonnie sat in Kuma's lap saying, we have finally done it. We have finally got to be together, and we can finally reach it. The horizon. And it's a beautiful shot of them together, and then it expands out to see the expanse of the horizon. The giant ship is a small tether to the Sunny. It is super lovely, super sweet. So I'm glad we got that little moment. But we jump away because obviously a big incident occurred. It was chapter 875 that this incident occurred in a cover story. And just over a month ago in the One Piece world was when in Gartle Island in the New World, Bartholomew Kuma himself, the cannibal, entered into Shanks' territory and burned down his flag, his Jolly Roger, as a sort of affront to the Yonko that is Shanks, and in declaration of the straw hat, he was holding up a straw hat emblem. And we see a resolution to this because we see, I think it is on this island, Shanks and his crew have easily beaten the straw hat fleet here, or whatever Bartolomeo's part in the straw hat fleet is, and he's chained up, he's on his knees, he's battered and bruised, and Shanks is basically very reasoning and explaining well to him that look, all the islands and his crew rely on that flag, and if he just lets this act slide, it would lose faith with people, it would put people in danger, his friends, his allies would become a target if he doesn't show a sign of strength or response, at least in this situation. And Bartolomeo is like, you're right, just forgive me, it was a foolish mistake, I wasn't thinking properly. and he's like begging and pleading, and there's like a very somber moment in the crowd, and Shanks himself like not giving much away, and it is Hongo who like kneels down and is like, this vial is a deadly poison, so this is what we're going to do. You're going to see to it that Luffy drinks this poison within a month. That is your punishment, basically. And he says it causes such intense pain that blood erupts from the victim and they will die. He says, we can overlook this if your boss takes responsibility, as you did it under the Straw Hat flag. And we see the other pirates of Bartolomeo's are like, this has got nothing to do with Luffy. This was us. Like, but before they even finish the sentence, Bartolomeo has grabbed the jar with his mouth and drinks the poison. And there was a moment of like reaction from everyone. Like, he just instinctually grabbed it, drank it, and is like, I've done it, okay. And he's like, it's fine by me. Luffy never asked us to do this. He didn't even ask us to share the sake or take up his flag. And he's like, I'm not going to involve him in this mess. His time is too precious to waste on someone like me. He says, I'm good just being another scrub who got killed trying to show up an emperor. Just a run-of-the-mill pirate. He says, I wish I could have seen Luffy become the king of the pirates. And I threw that chance away. He is apologising. He is ready. And as he kind of leans back, ready for the potion to take effect, the poison, he burps and belches and looks around confused. And it was just a bluff. It was a test to see how he would respond. And Shanks lets him go. We don't see Shanks say this, but they sail away aboard the club ship. And he's like, I can't believe Shanks let us go. Like, it wasn't poison after all. They weren't going to hurt Luffy. And then Bartolomeo's like, I thought like he was this ruthless emperor of the sea, and it turns out he's just like a big softy. And back on Shanks's ship, Beckman and like Shanks are talking, and he's like, why are you still smiling? And he's like, well, it's hard not to smile when you see someone so dedicated to Luffy, and it's just so like sweet, and you can kind of see the impact Luffy's having in the world. But it's kind of cut short because Yasop steps up and he's like, oh boss, do you mind just stepping out the way for a sec? And he lines up the sniper and just annihilates Bartolomeo's ship out the water and says, we have to teach them a lesson still. And on that day, on Gartle Island, the Barto Club pirate ship sunk. And it is still unknown if there are any survivors. So we see the ship burning, the wreckage, the mast, everything, the figurehead all splintered, sinking into the sea. I'm going to assume Bartolomeo is still around. I don't think he'd be killed off like that off screen. But we'll see. We jump away. We've dealt with one emperor. Now let's go to another. Blackbeard. Teach himself has returned to Hachinosu to obviously find that Pizarro and all the others had let Kobe escape, and he is furious. He's like, did you not hear? The world is on the edge now. Like, polyglyphs aren't an obscure object anymore. Like, people know it's not a secret. We emperors are about to like tear each other to pieces to find the One Piece. We're all this close. It's all happening. And you think the government and the Navy are just going to stand by? Like, we cannot mess this up. Kobe was his ace in the hole, he says. And he's like, he got away. And it is believed as well that Moria has also escaped. So Perona was able to help him escape as well. But as Pizarro is like crying, he's scurried away and apologising. We see a shot of Samwon Wolf rebuilding, like building by building the island, being like, where does this shop go? And he's like, put it down there. So who knows? But we find that the rallying troops of the pirates of this island are actually fired up and are energetic and are like, Commodore, we're ready for this now. Like, this is our time. You are going to be the one to claim the One Piece. We know it's you, Blackbeard. It is your job to like take over the world. And as they are all up in arms, we get a meeting of the 10 Titanic captains, well, the ones who are currently present, and Blackbeard himself. And he's like, at least morale is high after that, like, prisoner break, things are still good. And he's like, Kuzan, if I've heard correctly, Kobe might have got away, but, and Kuzan interjects, he's like, yeah, we caught Garp, he put up a real fight, but he survived, and we have him, like, chained up. And he's like, well, that is a hell of a consolation prize, he is a formidable person to take down. And Kuzan explains, he went, I was actually going for the kill, and he survived it. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Blackbeard's like, don't be hard on yourself. He is a tough geezer, Anyone going up against Gar would have been in trouble. But, there's not many who can tell the tale of being able to take him down. So, fair dues. And he was like, well, it obviously wasn't just him. It was a team effort here. But, Burgess is like, the wins are in our favour now. Like, we're really getting some momentum. And Blackbeard continues by pulling in Pudding. Obviously, Pudding was taken captive by him. And he's like, we've snagged the three-eyed girl from Big Mum. We have her now. And he's also like, let's catch up with Lafitte and see where they are. So as he's like grappling Pudding, we connect over to where Lafitte is, and he's at a UMIT shipping HQ for the Navy. So the UMIT is like the cargo, like, ferrying establishment of this world, and it's run by that UMIT guy who was like one of the underworld bosses. So he runs all the cargo ships, so he supplies a lot of the Navy cargo ships. And Lafitte is like amongst this loading dock, just like sat up on a building, chilling out. And he's like, oh, yeah, what is it you want to teach? And he's like, what were those revolutionaries up to in the end? And he basically explains what we've seen, which is the siege was so effective that the Red Port gondola keeps breaking down. The food storages are low. They are getting limited supplies of shipment. It's all been halted. So they're struggling to get food up there. And the Celestial Dragons may really end up starving at this rate with how bad it is. It's all a pretty unprecedented event. And not to mention, like, what's happening everywhere else. And teachers like, okay, it's done now. We're not sitting back. We're not going to sit back and watch anymore. It's time to get ready. And Lafitte's like, yep, understood. And we don't see anything else. But we still don't know what Lafitte can do. He's a very dangerous individual. We know he was able to, like, sprout wings. He seems to be a very elusive, very reconnaissant, like, espionage-esque individual. He knows a lot and gathers a lot. And he's travelling by himself. A lot of the commanders were either with Teach together on Hachinosu, or like travelling in a pair, which is where we see Katarina Devon and Van Auger returning to Hachinosu, and they announce loudly that they've arrived, and Katarina Devon shouts over to Pizarro, pick us up already, and Pizarro reaches out into the sea and just picks up the ship and brings it to port like immediately. He's like, I'm injured, like docking you guys is always such a pain, but on the normal flagship Blackbeard, like log ship that they love to have. But we see Caribou is obviously with them, and he's frightened by this monster, and they're like, I'll just shut up already, like, why do we have to bring this guy again? So we need to know the impact of Katarina Devon taking St. J. Garcia's identity. The Nine-Tailed Fox allows her to take on the appearance of anyone she touches. We don't know to what extent or effectiveness, whether it replicates memories, because obviously Bon Clay is like the lower version of it, where like he changes the face and he gets in the features. The Nine-Tailed Fox has to have some bigger upgrade to this, whether it may be like memories, like recent memories, whether it's access to other aspects of the person, devil fruit wise or ability wise. But like I said in the last video, in the last chapter, St. J. Garcia is done, and they don't know this yet. That information is not out. Only the Vice Admirals in the room, and Eam, and the Five Elders. Those are the individuals who are aware that St. J. Garcia is no more. Katarina Devon doesn't know this information, but was clearly happy to take his identity and leave. That was their role on the island the whole time. And Van Auger just like warp them away. They're like, yep, we're done. So is she at some point going to turn into St. J. Garcia? And then it's going to be like, we know you're a fake because St. J. Garcia doesn't exist. So who knows where that's going to go. But it's certainly interesting that like Shanks has now dealt with things and is making a move. All of the Blackbeard crew are now back together, other than Lafitte, who's, again, the mystery. And then we now jump to Luffy. We saw the Crocodile are also moving. Buggy was making his movement. But we come back to the Straw Hats. And it has now been 2 days since they'd set off from Egghead. However, even with the sailing speed of the great Eric, maybe some Elbathian legend is what I assume this is going to be a reference to, because not that I knew of, there is a Eric character. They have yet to arrive at Elbaf. However, we see the giant pirate ship and a giant fish, like a giant fish in the water. And everyone on board the Elbaf ship is freaking out because the Sunny has gone missing. It is no longer in the water, and a few of the Straw Hats were aboard it have also gone missing. The oldies of the crew, Brooke, Frankie, Robin and Jinbei, all the old veterans of the crew, are aboard the Elbaf ship. We're not on the Sunny when it went missing, so only the young ones of the crew have been taken. So Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Chopper have all gone missing with the ship. And there is a perplexing moment of, did anyone see where it went? What's caused this? Like, what's going on? And as they're discussing this, we see Bonnie is like holding on to Jinbei's like robe. We see Lilith is kind of like sat down, like looking away from us, like just maybe in like thought, trying to figure stuff out. And Robin hypothesizes like, well, maybe they could have been swallowed by that fish. And Frankie's like, this isn't a time to joke about that. You might just be right. That fish is huge. We don't know. And there's a moment of like, Luffy, like, where have you gone? And we cut away immediately to Nami waking up in this white space. And as she like regains consciousness, she's like, I've had way too much to drink. Like, I don't know what's going on. But she's in a vastly different outfit to where we'd saw her 2 days ago. You know, very simply dressed, whatever. In this shot, she is dressed like what we could assume to be an Elbaf warrior. She's got furs, she's got a sword on her back, she's got like that Viking like locks to her hair. And as she wakes up, she's like, what is going on? And someone wakes her up. There's a voice that says, Nami, wake up. And the only shot we get, this is the last panel of the chapter, is the confusion of this like Lego brick room that Nami has woken up in. This new space entirely. And that's where it ends, in this foreboding place. So, a real diversion to fill in the gap of travel, I guess, between Egghead and Elbaf. So are we going to have this little interlude of this Lego place that the Sunny and the others have been transported to? Is it the fish that's taken them? That Robin was right. We also know, Nami is saying here she had way too much to drink. We did have reference at the start that this absinthe could impose hallucinations. So, are we gonna go on like a collective trip with how much drink they've had? I don't know, because the others have been drinking it. So, I think this is real. I think someone is manipulating the space and has taken these in the Sunny, and we'll have a resolution within a couple of chapters. Maybe longer. I don't know. It's seemingly that they're in a new space entirely, and it's not explained how yet. So we shall wait and see. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of this chapter, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.